Hello everyone. My name is Ayin Sun, currently a second grader in Incheon Jinsan Science High School. Today, I will be talking about the questions that made us and the ones that will. When I was first informed of the topic of this TED Talk, I had a hard time figuring out what to talk about. Questions about the future. Quite a general topic, I think. I guess the problem was that there were too many things to talk about. And as a student in a science-centered high school, my thoughts first leaned towards science. And I started to research a bunch of future scientific technologies. DNA modification, cloning, that kind of stuff. And these technologies were cool, but they were just cool. So I sat down and tried to think in the most creative, inquiring, and confident version of myself. My 6-year-old self. Cute, right? Yeah. Thank you. And I started to remember how excited I was when imagining the future. And even recovered recent thoughts I had about the future, but let fly. Then I realized this was actually the perfect topic for me. I could talk, not on the way I prepare presentations for high scores. I could talk about my genuine thoughts. So that is what I will do today. I will talk about my thoughts on inquiring about the future. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about the future? Some of you may picture something like this: a utopian future, vibrant, flawless, with jetpacks and everything. Others, such as me, who has a serious addiction for sci-fi, something like this: a dystopian future, much darker but with its own allure. I describe it to be cooler, or maybe I have watched too many movies. It's hard to predict what the future will look like. Questioning is important. And to ask the right questions for tomorrow, you must first revisit the questions that shape today. The first question is, will we ever land on the moon? A common inquiry back in the early 20th century. For most of the early 20th century, we were skeptical of this. But look at us now. Not only did we succeed in landing on the moon, in quite a short time considering the landing was in 1969, we have rockets that can land back on Earth and be reused. Movie-like spaceships are not far away. And we are also steps closer to colonizing Mars, something that was a wild idea now becoming reality. Next question is, will we have a cure for cancer? In the 70s, we strongly believed that cancer would be fully cured by the year 2000. But as of now, in 2025, although we have discovered many meaningful and effective treatments, there is no real cure. These were both very important questions. The first one exploring the expansion of human territory, and the second one talking about the pinnacle of diseases. Something important to look at is how our predictions were wrong. When we think of the future, we are often in fear. This is true, and let me prove it to you. Try naming 5 movies that describe the future as dystopian, dark. There's Blade Runner, Cyberpunk, technically not a movie, but still. It's easy, right? Now try to think of 5 that show a utopian future, a brighter one. Yeah, much harder. Even our best friend ChatGPT answers with these movies, most of which we have never heard of or is unfit as an answer, proving my point. Why must we be in fear? Why do we keep asking questions in fear? You've seen how our predictions can fail. I believe this negative questioning towards the future is inducing more negative views, perhaps blowing life into ideas that would have never happened in the first place. There's a word I recently learned in English class perfectly fitting for this occasion. I believe you all know it. We must be agnostic, not being affected by such views. We should start throwing out exciting questions. Questions not in fear, but to inspire. It could be simple too. I daydream very often, and I've spent quite a big portion of my life thinking of random concepts that suddenly pop up in my brain. Sometimes mid-classes. But during these daydreams, I often ask questions about the future. Something like, can we get rid of traffic? And I believe this will be possible, and in quite a short time at that. We already have self-driving cars, so if we can build a network consisted of every single car on the road, we can build a system where all cars move perfectly in unison. Something like this. Or who knows, maybe cars will disappear entirely to introduce a new type of transportation that doesn't cause traffic at all. What an exciting thought. And imagine how it will feel to know you will always be on time. Another question is, how will the way we socialize change? At a glance, this question may not seem that interesting, especially to this audience composed of many future scientists. But there are many different ways to approach this question. I, as an introverted and not well-spoken person, have a hard time expressing my feelings and emotions, and words can only do so much. So, what if we can invent a technology where we can share our thoughts and emotions brain to brain? Imagine how more diversely we will be able to express ourselves. It will become so much easier to understand each other's point of views, solving conflict. Let's stay on this topic a little bit longer. We often have thoughts that cannot be put into words. This happens to me very often, and I want to explain it to you, but it's really hard. Some kind of strange feeling in my gut. And yeah, I give up. And the feelings remain inside me. But maybe in the future, I could share this thought with all of you, and we will all be nodding our heads in agreement. Think about that. I believe we should try to ask more questions like these. Questions in fear are still important in their own way, preparing for negative changes, which are inevitable. And the expertise we will have acquired in the future will be important in solving global problems. I'm not trying to say we should face away from these views entirely, but you've seen how exciting questions can change the way we think. They are powerful and capable of bringing hope. Especially as students of TEDxIJSHS Science High School, we have the potential to make great changes. We can ask bold questions that may be viewed as naive, but we have the power to make it reality. I hope my presentation brought enlightenment into new ways of inquiring about the future. And as my presentation was about questions, it's only fitting to end it with a question. My question to all of you is, what is stopping you from questioning? Thank you for listening.